complicated. It's best to keep it basic. Open the book, the word is self-approved. He's Alpha and Omega, the answer since the early ages. What you should do is learn about the greatest. Just so you know, our door is always open. Let's study together instead of debating. Share our differences, let love heal all that's broken. If you need truth, this is the place for you. Don't need to complicate it, it's best to keep it basic. Open the book, the word is self-approved. He's Alpha and Omega, the answer since the early ages. What you should do is learn about the greatest. Just so you know, our door is always open. Let's study together instead of debating. Share our differences, let love heal all that's broken.
And shalom aleichem to each and every one of you. So glad to have you with us today. This is yours truly, Apostle V.W. Jones, right here on what is known as the Proceeding Word. I'm sorry about that. It's up there for you to see it. Good to have you all with us. Hey, Miss Williams. Hello, Mr. Felton. Good to see you, Lindo. All right. Minister Phillips, long time. Good to see you as well on the broadcast. Glad that you all are here today for part 2 and the conclusion of Parental Guidance, Elohim Style. Good to have you with us, Clubhouse audience. Hey, Lady Stacy, good to see you today. Hey, Miss Sherry, and I pray, hey, Matisha, good to see you as well. Elder Rogers, Minister Wanda, Pastor Yolanda, Minister Veronica, Prophetess Leslie, good to be with you guys today. I'm sorry to call out names like that. I just felt like saying, hey. Anywho, we got a lot to discuss today. I hope that you all are here. If you want to be doing us a favor here in the ministry, many people say, how can we bless this ministry? Just tell what you learn. That's it. Just share what you learn and be able to explain it. That's all. But today, what we want you to do is take opportunity for those of you viewing with us on the video streams of today, both YouTube. Used to have Ustream, but YouTube, if you'll do us a favor, if you're viewing in for the first time, or maybe you have been viewing in but forgot to subscribe, please hit the subscribe button, make a comment, and of course, share. Those of you who are with us on the Facebook page, would you please like the VWJ Ministries page on Facebook? And then while you're viewing on that page, like this program and make a comment. And of course, if you are part of the DKM Ministries citizenship, we hope that you would share it with those that you know would usually be here. Remember, this is the midday programming, so many people are working, but the UK, y'all should be out of work. I'm just joking. You're probably cooking dinner right now. But at the end of the day, it'd be good if you guys could share, pass it on to someone. Today is going to be interesting because it's a practical application of how a kingdom citizen, Elohim's kingdom, that's right, the kingdom of heaven citizenship, should operate while on earth in human form. That's what we are. I'm a citizen of the kingdom of Elohim, and I'm in earth operating as a human. And yet we are just journeying through this land, right? We call ourselves pilgrims, right? We're not going to be here always, right? Our time here will expire, right? But while we're here, we need to practically know how to operate in the word of Elohim to represent the kingdom of Elohim, thereby hear him say, once we're done this journey, well done, my good and full of my word, faithful servant. It hit different, don't it? I promise you it does. Well, let's just tell you why we're here. One of the big things, just do a little bit of housekeeping very quickly and let you know what we do here. And we've got 3 minutes to get this done. And then we'll get right into our conclusion of our lesson on parental guidance, Elohim Style, part 2. We are the proceeding word. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahweh, who is in fact our Elohim. And so we're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at approximately 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're glad to be sharing this stuff with you again every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This Friday, we will be on location, so it might be a little touchy with the time, depending on whether we're late on flights or what have you. Going to be having a great time in another state with another dynamic ministry. We're looking forward to that and sharing that later on. Also, remember, today is Wednesday, and Wednesday is, in fact, our day of midweek Bible study. We're going to be talking about another part of a series that is spoken to the appointed and the scheduled reset of all life. You don't want to miss it. I don't think you do, but you'll enjoy it if you get there. And don't forget, tomorrow, every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are here for the Bible Book Club, where we read and make the effort to read the Bible from beginning to end. And for the last year and some change, I'm being very kind on that. We have been in the book of Genesis, yet we have traveled all through the entirety of your Bible, just reading from the book of beginnings. Interesting when you learn how to read the Bible rightly and understand the definitions that go along with it. We invite you to come. You're welcome to be there with us as well. And then we're also a Sabbath keeping ministry. Remember, we do have what we call Sabbath Midrash, and we keep that every Friday at sundown until Saturday at sundown. And when we go live, technically about 11 p.m. on Friday night sometimes, and or 11 a.m.-ish sometimes on Saturday, you can join us. But here's the truth, man. Sabbath Midrash studies. If you need the truth of how Elohim wants for you and I to operate in this world, you need the truth. This is the place to be when we go live. And remember, since we are a Sabbath keeping ministry, we also have what we call the Morrow After Sabbath service. Most of you might know that as the typical Sunday services. And that's what they are. Every Sunday, 10:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Rosh Kingdom Ministries is sharing from Revelations. And again, the reveal that we're on right now is the appointed and scheduled reset of all life. Well, we're glad again to have you with us. We're going to be talking today from another subject matter today about the preceding word, which is going to be dealing with parental guidance. And parental guidance is a very sensitive topic and subject in what we do. And so I want to make sure we get the opportunity to talk about it practically, because many of us, because we're saved, we think we know how to be good parents because we're Christians. But we need to understand the lines, understand the age and phases, as well as the nuances of parenting our children that we are charged to rear up. How long does a parent pamper, literally change the diapers, when and how do we shift into a new form of parental guidance? Well, we're here today on the preceding word to talk about those things. Let's get started as we have a word of prayer. Yahweh, thank you for the day, time, and place. Thank you for the opportunity to share your word with your people. We take this moment to let you know that we deem you supreme. There is none above you. There is none beside you. And you, Elohim, are creator of heaven and earth and all that therein dwell. We are your creation. Father, we pray today that by the blood of Yeshua HaMashiach, that we willingly and willfully, of our own volition, bathe beneath, first repenting for any sin, whether we did something by deed, whether we did something by word, whether we are contemplating it in our thoughts. We now relegate all three of those elements, mind, body, and soul, to repentance and your blood for cleansing. Remove from us anything contrary to your will, contrary to your instructions for a human in the earth that is a part of your Torah. And we now say we surrender, we confess murmuring, complaining, lying, stealing, covetousness, anything that violates your word for human life. We repent and say we surrender our body, our members to you for your usage. Thank you for your blood. Though our sins would have been like scarlet, your blood would make us as white as snow. And as we follow your word, now that the blood is applied, it will cleanse us from everything the blood lifted from our lives. And we now stand before you in right stead. And we now look to live in this world, not off of our imaginations, but off of your word, which becomes whatever you say we have need of. Man does not live by bread alone, as we understand it, but by every word that proceeds out of your mouth, Yahweh. And whatever your word says, your word creates. And we wait for your word. So I decrease the person, the leader, whoever I think I am in VW Jones, any title I have, I surrender to you. I decrease all things me for your will to literally elevate above me and speak to your people. I decrease that you, Adonai, would increase. Let your words be the foundation and the foremost element on this broadcast. Any thoughts I have, filter them through your word. I look to filter them through your word. And I thank you for your word. So we have a place of foundation. In the mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach, please help us. We need your wisdoms. Amen. All right, everybody. So glad to be with you. I mean that with my whole heart. And many of you have been dealing with the issues of parenting. And we talked about this in our first broadcast on this subject, part 1. Again, Facebook, YouTube, I need y'all. Please hit the heart sign. Please hit the like sign. Please, can y'all do that now for me? I know, take a break. Just look over from your cubicle and just hit the heart sign for me. Please, thank y'all. Okay, now that gets us going. But we're now in part 2 of this particular journey. And I want to make sure we get it. So let's do a real quick recap on what we talked about in the last part of our programming on Monday. We know that we talk about it oftentimes, training up a child in the way that the child should go. And we think we understand it. So let's just look at it from this respect. And I shared a lot with you guys on last week. Unfortunately, it was met with a great deal of ridicule and antagonism because it's just not the way certain people were trained. But when you learn something new, do not let it become a problem for you. Let it become an aid to you. And so, and even if it's something different than what you've learned, make sure before you just dismiss it, you at least take opportunity to research it and get involved in the data of it. And then once you've processed it yourself, then you can throw it out. But don't throw it out as soon as you hear it. Take it in, vet it, and then you'll be able to make a better decision whether I should throw this out or keep this for my own life to live by. So we talked about training up our children. And as a man who has, at this point now, raised several children well into adulthood, well into life, I am not perfect, and I'm trying to do better with my grandchildren phase of life, making sure that I'm as involved in their lives as I have been in my sons and daughters' lives. But there are parameters in which I can operate. And though I may have honor from my sons and daughters, I have to also honor my sons and daughters who are now parents. And so this coupled by the culture I was raised in could prove somewhat complicated, but if ever filtered through the word, become very simple and effective in having a family that appreciates, honors, respects, and evolves into a bigger entity, a greater entity than when it first began. So let's talk about it. The Bible has always said, and we love to quote it like we know what we're talking about. He said, the Bible says in Proverbs chapter and number 22. Let's look at this full screen so you can catch this. In Proverbs chapter number 22, it goes on to indicate that in verse 6, and we talked about this then, train up a child in the way the child, girl or boy, should go. And when the child is old, the child will not depart from it. Let me read it in the KJV so you understand it like you've been reading it all your life. Train up a child in the way that he should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, I want to make sure you guys are clear. I'm willing to answer questions today I'm going to be in that teacher mode for the next couple of weeks. So you can ask me questions. So if you got questions, feel free to start formulating them. And you can type them in the text on Facebook or Clubhouse thread. And as well, not Clubhouse, Facebook and YouTube thread. Clubhouse, if you're on and have a microphone, come off of mic, say your name, and we'll answer your questions. This has to be an interactive conversation and broadcast today, because the dynamics are per your specificities. And though I'm going to give you a general overview of how Elohim's style of raising your children goes, you still have culture, ethnicity, religion, viewpoint, generational curses and blessings you have to deal with. But let's get those nuances under the overall concept of Elohim's way to rear up and train up a child in the way that it should go. And when you stop training a child and start dealing with an adult that came from your loins or your womb. These are important things to comprehend. So let's get back to it. When we talk, so you can ask questions, get ready, make your questions, get them up. Don't feel bad. There's no dumb question. And if I'm talking on Clubhouse, feel free to say your name. Our moderators will get you, and then they'll put you in queue. And if you're on YouTube or Facebook, type in your questions. We will get them. We have moderators looking there as well to answer those questions. So today I want to have an interactive engagement with you all for the purpose of educating all of us. Train up a child in the way that the child should go, that when the child is old, the child will not depart from it. We have always been taught within, certain denominations, certain faith systems, certain cultures, certain nations, certain neighborhoods in a culture, that we should train a child up this way or that way. We have people like Dr. Spock, not from Star Trek, but some psychologist, psychiatrist who felt he understood better how to raise a child than Elohim did. And he put a book out, and many people, Christian and, and the like, gravitated to his theory and began to indoctrinate and legislate his way of raising a child into at least the American culture, the North American, United States of America culture, and made legislation to it to where you could actually be criminalized if you did not do it the way Dr. Spock said to do it, because he was sanctioned by the government to do this, that, or the other with us, and they deemed him to be a forthwith authority on the subject of child raising. Yeah, didn't work out quite as well as we thought, huh? But, and I say that with all due respect, no sarcasm, I mean that. It didn't work out. And that's where we have to be mindful that everything pushed at you needs to be filtered through the word. And what he had was not filtered through the word of Elohim, who actually created humans. So the best place to learn parenting from is the creator of humans. So train up a child in the way he should go. When he gets old, he won't depart from it. We have this concept of, my child is mine. First problem is that child is not yours. That child came through you. I came through my mother and my father. Thankfully, I came through healthy. I was raised in an environment that shaped my tastes and what we call culture, and gave me these nuances that I carry. It also gave me some of the appetites that I have for life, for food, for activity, for sports, for music. All of that is based on the environment you're in. There was a great man in the Bible named King David. And in Psalms chapter 51, he made a statement. My mother and father conceived me in sin. And then once I was born, I was shaped in iniquity. Now we have a parallel statement we never connected in our modern world that says, one, show me your friends, I'll tell you who you are. Another one that says, and this is more relevant, you're shaped by your environment. Your environment is what you become, is what you are. Very few people get away from the way they were raised and environmentally provided for, to another place and forget about where they came from, which is always a bad thing to do. But it is doable, but most don't go into it. So you are shaped by your environment. David says, I was conceived in sin. My mom and dad conceived me in sin. Therefore, I was raised in a state of iniquity. And that is a big thing we don't pay attention to, though we quote it and try to preach it. But sin creates an environment of iniquity. It is a similar thing that I use as an analogy to a person who may flagellate. Usually when flagellation happens, it's something going on in the intestines of a body, and it will always have a putrid scent that comes from it. So when flagellation happens, there is an aroma that fills the room, the space, the car, the van, the bed that you are in. And so when you flagellate, that is release what's inside into an environment. The environment is affected, and that now carries that scent. So the person in that environment, when it happens, initially senses it. And then if they don't move from it and they just fan it around, they get accustomed to it. They don't realize it's still there, and they have now become accustomed to it. Now, someone else walking in 10 minutes later be like, yo, what's that smell? Like, what are you talking about? You don't smell that? Not anymore. So, that's another thing you got to realize. Sometimes you can be in an environment that is affected, and because you're in it so long, you become, as we say, accustomed to it, immune to it. So sin, we were all born into it. We're technically immune to sin. Everything about our life is based on Adam sinning. We were not born in the perfect scenario Yahweh intended. Therefore, we were born in sin and thus shaped in iniquity. Now, you might say, what's that got to do with childbearing? Well, it's a true thing, because where you raise your child is what your child becomes. So when Elohim gave us the right to actually be a part of the process for reproducing humanity, he put seed in man, gave womb to the woman, and the two would in fact help each other in total to create another human. Copulation brings about reproduction. And in that reproductive state, the human that Yahweh has pushed forward by soul to come into the body that the two of you, husband and wife, man and woman, create, that soul in that flesh suit now becomes its own person. But it has to be reared, it has to be raised, it has to be taught. And then once it's been given everything about life that it can get, and there's more it'll have for basic survival, then that human makes its own choices, makes its own decisions, and does its own thing. Should it honor who brought him in? Yes. Should it honor who labored 9, 10, 20 hours to and gave their body up for 9 months? They should. But do they have to? Nope. And so now we've legislated this thing, whether by religious order and perspective and perception, or by legal in our national laws and laws and edicts of our government, to say, all right, mothers and fathers, you're to be honored by your children. Children, you're supposed to honor your mother and father, yada yada. But at the end of the day, raising a child has to first be understood that I am raising another human being that Elohim wants in the earth. My job, I've been chosen, you've been chosen, like it or not, mistake or not. Elohim makes no mistakes. That child is to be in the earth. That human is needed for his plan. And we are simply gateways to Elohim's plan coming to fruition. So when you abuse a child that comes through you, misuse a child that comes through you, enslaves a child mentally, physically, financially, emotionally, who comes into this world, you are going against Elohim and his plan. Now, the purpose of making that statement is that to raise that child, you must first understand that child does not belong to you, spiritually speaking. That child is to be raised by you. You've been given a job. Now, your job is to make sure that child is taken care of, well fed, well cared for, nutrition rightly, as best you can with the provisions you have. And you have to lean on Elohim for the provision of what Elohim gave you. Now, that requires us to take time once that child comes, once we're in family mode, to give up our aspirations until our goals that we've set for ourselves personally, until we get these or that child to the point where they are a critical thinking, productive entity in society, just like you. So once that child has been raised up, learning what a frog is, learning what water is, learning what heat can do to you, what cold can do to you, what to wear in any of those elements, how to operate, how loud to talk in public, how quiet to talk, what you should share, what a family is supposed to consist of, what it looks like, and what is an uncle, what is an aunt, what is a mom, a grandmom, a granddad. Once we've given those basic essentials for human relationship and given the, I forget the hierarchy, Maslow's theory. I think it's Maslow's hierarchical chart. Once you've given a hierarchy of needs, once you've been able to do that and you share that, help them understand what to eat, what not to eat, you've raised a child. That child is not obligated, once they've come to that point of knowing how to choose right from wrong, understanding what good and bad are, and therefore, once they've come to that place, that child technically does not owe you, by Elohim's standard, anything but honor and respect for caring for them in their vulnerable years. We have taken the mindset that that's my child, and we've said this, and I told y'all before, which goes against Elohim's word, though we use it as Christians who preach his word, and we say to a child, if they disobey too often, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out of this world. Well, technically, you were used to bring that child in. You didn't do it. You didn't make it happen. Elohim already had a process. You are one of the tools in that process, and it moved seamlessly and organically, maybe with discomfort to you as a woman, and maybe with discomfort to the man, as all that goes on with that provisions. But you did not bring that child into this earth, and you do not have the right to take that child out of this world. So the statement, though we understand it, it's humorous, some meant it, that is not ours to say. So that is, in fact, an error. And if we think from that respect, we miss the whole point and principle. So what I want everyone to get is this, that we understand the children that came through our loins, that came through our wombs, they belong to Elohim, and our job is to dress them so they can be presented to Elohim. And then Elohim can tell them their purpose, their reason, their plan. Now, in doing that, boy, oh boy, can they tear up a house, and can they eat you out of house and home? Can they get on your nerves? Can you not know what to do to deal with their nuances, their emotions, and their way of thinking and their way of life? Yes, it becomes weird. So parenting is something that, we have to watch the child. That's why this one verse, Proverbs 22, is to train up a child in the way that the child should go, because though you've birthed that child, most of you did not birth your children with purpose. Most of us, if you'll admit this, had children out of a romantic interlude or a concept of I'm now married, I want to start a family, but didn't know what it meant to start a family other than have some babies with your husband and your wife and sit around and eat gingerbread cookies once a year and go on vacations and have grandbabies. No purpose was instilled for why another human came into the earth. So most of us have children without purpose that is significant. other than I want to have a family, other than a woman saying I want to have a child, a man saying I want to have a son. So we didn't really have children based on a real concept. We had children based on our wants, or in many cases, what you would say, a mistake. Oh well, man, I didn't cover it up. I didn't do, pregnancy, pregnancy. What's that called? Not pregnancy. What's it called? The word is coming. Pregnancy, preventative pregnancy. Right? We didn't do the things. He didn't take a pill. She didn't take a pill. Oh, we got caught out there, and now we got a child. What we gonna do? That, unfortunately, y'all, I'm a counselor. I'm telling you, I got people in my office every day. When you make them think back, they're like, I didn't have a plan. I had a good time as a human, and I got caught with this. So at the end of the day, most of us didn't think about what we needed to think about before having children, because we're too busy trying to live our lives and do our own thing. And so the issue is we were not really ready for children. Now, there are always exceptions to the rule. There are some of you who are, you did understand this concept. You did have a child with purpose, with plan. You did budget. You did make sure you had everything, house, home, career, all intact before you had a child. But I'm sorry, 99% of the people did not. Now, there are certain cultures that have a higher ratio of that planning in place before they do. But, the arena I grew up in, most did not. Now, here is the part to this that becomes very interesting for all of us, is that once you get a child, each child is unique to itself. Now, it carries a cachet of generational issues. Some are curses, some are blessings. And so the parent has to know exactly what it's dealing with when it comes to that. Now, back in the day, it was a little bit easier because if you had a child with your mate, you knew the mate. Most of us are having children, at least in this last 100 years, at least, with people who we just liked. And if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. And we never really got to know the person. Therefore, the child we had, we don't know. And we're trying to make the child grow up the way we did. But their dad is different than your dad. And their dad has issues you didn't get to know. The mom had issues you didn't get to know. Y'all just got to know the hot, steamy part of that person, and talked about a life together, but never got to really see them in stress, never got to see them in success, never got to see them in lull moments when they felt depressed and how they responded, how they reacted, because all of that gets transferred to every child a human has. And that is why we call it generational cursings. We talk more about that than we do the other side of it, generational blessings. So we don't really know the person we had child with, and that becomes problematic. So until you know the person you're having the child with and their mindset at the time of that, you and that child will always be as estranged as the person you never got to know. And you wonder why your child, I don't know why they do this. I don't know why, because you don't know who you had the baby with. Now, again, this is a recap of what we talked about on Monday. Now, that also becomes sort of kind of a problem. People don't want to hear that. They're like, oh, what are you talking about? Okay, if you sit still for a minute, you might learn something, or at least come back and watch the review. I promise you, it'll help you practically in your walk in faith and in what we call Christendom. Now, the interesting piece here is this. To train up a child in the way that they should go, last part of the recap, is to watch a child and see what they gravitate to. And I taught you that if you watch the child and see what they gravitate to, you can see in part what they're going to be capable of doing in the earth, because they got to cut their own trail. We should help them with the tools so they can cut their trail effectively, but they still have to blaze their own trail. Though you've set a base they can branch out from, your base community, neighborhood, village, house, mansion, plantation, whatever, still there's uncharted land beyond what you stopped and settled in. And your children, though they can use this as a home base, will still have to go out and do the same thing you did. So, as free as you wanted to be as a child and now an adult, your children have that same aspiration and desire. It's a normal cycle of life. It's a normal cycle of the neurology of any human being, really of any creature that Elohim has ever made. So, once you've watched what your child gravitates to, if they gravitate to, planting plants, you want to get ahead of that as a parent and say, let me find out as much as I can about horticulture, about agriculture. And this way, when they have questions, I can be where they go to for answers. If they gravitate towards financing, let me get as much information as I can, even at this late stage, about financing, or at least areas where they can get good information from proper resources on financing. So while they're playing around with finances, playing around with their piggy bank, they have questions, I can be where they go to, and I can secure a safe pathway for them going forward. This is parenting, right? Now, if they gravitate to a particular sport, all the types that there are, you get ahead of that sport and its knowledge and become coach-like without forcing them on the path you see them on because you like it, and can say to them, hey, if you want any information, let me know. But you've already gotten information on it. You see them dealing with it. So when they start getting serious with it, you have real, proper information to share with them, and they can trust you, not only now as mom or dad, but also as coach, and can be very easily shifted into a confidant's position in life. Now, that is a lot of what we talked about in the first part. Now, in understanding those things, it bleeds us now into what happens once we've done those things, or in many of our cases, we realize I'm this day old, realizing that's what I should have done. How can I correct it? Well, you can't. Now you can only know it and pay attention to it so you can help their children as a grandparent. We'll talk about that in a second. So back to the recap. You get ahead of what your child is doing. According to the writ, train up a child in the way he should go. You don't force a child once born into something. They never become who they were designed to be. They become who you wanted. They're literally living your life vicariously. You're living their life. You're living through them vicariously. They're living your life by default, and it's a force. And technically, they become enslaved to your vision. And then the moment they buck against it because it just doesn't feel normal to them, though they were obedient to you, and then they say, I don't want to do this anymore, you as a parent now say, you're being disrespectful and you got no respect. I done did this for you. I done did that for you. I done did the other for you. And you should honor me. And now we have a psychological government, a psychology within our government that says, this is what should be done. Dr. Spock's rules come into play, and others like him, and no one searches through the writ. But to train up a child in the way that they should go, you watch what that child wants to do. And yes, they can be fickle. Yes, they can be in multiplicity of thoughts. Yes, because their minds at a young age are at their best. They can absorb so much more than you and I can do. I made a joke in a post last week about, at my age now, I can only do one or two things at the same time. All right. And so a friend of mine, a great electrician and music promoter, one of my best friends, he said, I was talking, I said, man, pay attention. He said, look, I can only do one or two things at the same time. If I pay attention, I'm not listening. Now, if I'm listening, I'm not paying attention. So which one you want? I had to post it because it was the truth. I was like, I ain't even mad at you right now. So, when you're young, you can pay attention, listen, do other things. You can finagle it. I know it to be true. And when we get older, shoot, we got to take off our glasses to hear. Some of y'all will catch that when you stop thinking, I'm not giving y'all nothing important. Some of y'all, you gotta turn down the volume on the radio so you can see what you trying to look at on TV. You know what I mean? If y'all know what I mean, I'm gonna do one or the other at this time, but I ain't doing both. I can't. I gotta take my glasses off so I can hear you. You know. Oh God, that is hilarious to me because it's so true. And I've done it. I'm sitting there driving and I'm turning the music down so I can read the sign.
Wow.
Anybody but me? So children at a young age, their minds they're like sponges. And when we were raising our children, at least I can say in the era I've lived in an industrial age of sorts, now in a .com, which is now changed, in a technology age that we're in today, the type of technology we're in today. In an industrial, we're still in an industrial age. I don't care what nobody says. We are still in an industrial age, and we are trying to, as raised grown people, achieve a certain status and yet have a family. And because we are still trying to achieve our goals, we are goal oriented first, and then a family is just a byproduct of a relationship I got with someone else. And in truth, it should be reversed. I have a family to reach my goals, because I should be raising physicians who I don't have to question whether Big Pharma is paying them off to give me drugs just so they can have a mortgage and they can pay their mortgage. I know that the physician has a connection to me because I'm their father, and they're going to give me the best care if they want me to live and if I've raised them rightly. I should also be raising an accountant. I should also be raising, any thing that we see as successful in the earth and making things move, shaking and making things happen in the earth. I should be raising physicians. I should be raising bankers. I should be raising historians. I should be raising, people like that. So if while they're young, see what they gravitate to. One child may like history. One child may like dance. One child may like music. One child may like money. One child, not just to buy candy. One child may like, science and mixing dish detergent with hand sanitizer and seeing what can come out of that. You gravitate to that as a parent. You're now doing what Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6 says. You're watching your child gravitate to something that they're organically interested in, innately interested in, and now you cover them while they play in that arena until that play becomes, hey, I know this. I think we can do this. All right, now my resources go to that, because in any of those genres, it has the ability to become profitable for our family. And now our family ascends. And then when those children, and I'm skipping a lot here, when those children become authorities in that arena because your foundation, base, and support, they will now start having children with something in mind. And then they'll watch their children and see what they gravitate to. And before you realize it, you have a conglomerate in your own home, in your own lineage. Now, for the average, again, industrial era born person, we didn't think like that. But the people who control the industry, they do. So, I'll give you an example of that and move off of it quickly. I'll be nice because I was going to be very mean. Chrysler, the owners of, Chrysler cars, automobiles. And I'm gonna paraphrase this for sake of time. He was making a particular car. It was in competition with Ford, with Chevy, and with, others. And they said, hey, the people like a diversity of cars. He says, okay, fine. I'll make the same car under a different company name, but I'll own the company. So whatever brand they want that they think is competing with the other, I still own them. And I've put a corner on that market. Let me help you understand that. You have Chevy, who owns Cadillac, who owns Pontiac. So when you go to buy a car, the cars that are in Chevy, Pontiac, and Cadillac all compete with each other, but they're owned by the same group: Ford, Lincoln, Mercury. Y'all see where this goes? And so you think you're buying a Ford to compete with a Mercury, but they're the same car. They just gave you a different name, changed the fender, moved the gear on the seat, and you think it's a competitive element. They own Ford, Lincoln, Mercury.
Yes, that's right.
Y'all understand that? So this is how you make a conglomeracy. This is how you make a family that actually can be what it needs to be. So parenting, get off that point. So we get the parenting. So when you and I have children, we are to actually ask Elohim, why is this child in the earth? How can I aid your goal for this child? Now, the inherent problem that we have with that concept is none of us think that way. We were having children in fornication. We were having children in sin, right? We weren't thinking about God when we were having children. I know I wasn't. I saw a cute bottom my wife had, and I'm like, I'm hitting that, I'm getting that, and I ended up with a child. Like, oops, okay, now what do we do? Oh well, this is that thing called family. And then you just went with the family. Oh, you got to provide as a man, and you got to get out there and make money and put a roof over the head and all that. And those wonderful traits, necessary, mandatory traits, but they are the bare minimum. The parent, the father, must also have a reason and a purpose and an eye to understand what this child can produce in the world that's different from what he or his wife or the baby's mother can produce, and then convince the community to get behind this idea of that child. Y'all not gonna act like I didn't just say something important. So we were just raised in our iniquified state, because we were born in this era, error, E-R-A and E-R-R-O-R, of what a family is, what a child is, and what a parent is. Because we found a system we all fit in called the Industrial Revolution, the industrial era, and I got to go to school to make money to pay the mortgage. And that's what it was. Instead, if we would be raising our children rightly, we would have our own industry other people would want to be in. Instead, we were born into something that says, hey, I'm a part of this industry, and I'm set to these goals of this industry. So I'm gonna raise my children to be successful in this industry. We never try to raise our children to create our own industry. Though we say it, we never do it. That's not how we think, because it's easier to go with what already exists. And we'll try to do something differently if we should get somebody, 1 in a quadrillion people, to see our value and then invest in us. That's the only way we'll create our own industry. And it doesn't have to be that way. Each family, if you pay attention to it, watch this. And I'm going to give you back to raising your child and parental guidance. But we can't understand parental guidance unless we understand the purpose and the power of family. When you think about power and you think about companies of wealth, they all have their family name on them. Walmart, Chase, Morgan, Rockefeller, Vanderbilt. Is it starting to click now?
Amen.
Kennedy, Ford. And if you look at what their family does, they are launched out by each of their children into certain different technical pieces that they get behind their children on and say, hey, look, you're gonna handle construction. Hey, you're gonna handle electrician. Hey, you're gonna handle computer. Hey, you're gonna handle politics. Hey, you're gonna handle legislation. Hey, you're gonna handle finance. Hey, so whatever we need, you're gonna handle some medical stuff. You're gonna handle nursing. You're gonna handle being a physician. All these things. So our family always has these things, and we don't have to be supplied them by the government. So until we understand the power of that corralling of what comes out of our loins, we're never going to understand how to parent. So now back to the Bible. Are y'all okay, or did I lose y'all's attention? Y'all want to go now? Okay. So back to parenting for the practical sense of what it is, and that's just the foundation that we need to start paying attention to. Even as a grandparent, I now know how to watch my grandchildren, but I got to watch my grandchildren through the goals of their parents. And I can only work with my grandchildren the way that their authority, their mom, their dad, allows. So I have the best option of helping my grandchildren by talking to my children and saying, hey, I noticed that they like crochet. Hey, I noticed that they like classical music. Hey, I noticed that they like their piggy bank. Hey, I noticed that they like pushing that ball with their feet. Hey, I noticed that they like this, they like that. And oh, okay, you see that, Dad? Yeah, I do. So what you saying? Well, I mean, while you're doing that and trying to get house and mortgage and everything straightened out, if you want, I can start learning some of that stuff and just make sure I get them some information. Would you mind? Yeah, I do. I would like that because I don't have time. I see you working. I'm a little older. I raised y'all already. I've set myself up in a little bit of a way that I don't have so much, and I miss parenting anyway. So if you don't mind, I can work with you to get them that information that they will need to benefit your family, which ultimately benefits me in the end because I know you're gonna take care of me once it all comes together. Do y'all understand that? And I can stop this program right here and say we're done. But what we do in this world is we fight with our parents. We fight with our children who are now parents to our grandchildren because we don't think our children are raising their children right. When the truth is, you were in that very position just 20 years ago and you didn't know everything. And so rather than antagonize your child who's now a parent, remember what it was like when you were a young parent trying to raise a child and you really didn't know anything other than put food on the table, keep roof overhead. And now by only having that concept, put food on table, keep roof overhead, by only having that concept, moderators, by only having that concept, we've allowed other people who watch our children, from guidance counselors at school to predators. There's just not sexual predators. There are financial predators who steal and mine ideas from the youth, because if I get behind something early and this child is only 13, 18, I got another 20, 30 years if this thing is successful. And if I invest in it at ground seed, then I trademark it. Now I took that family's seed and I've planted it in my yard. And though I'll let them get some fruit, I still own the root. Does that hit different? No? Okay.
Yes, it does. Yes, sir.
So when we, like David says, I was conceived in sin, right? And I was shaped in iniquity. When the family concept is only to provide a roof and food, and of course, protection, but we're not mining the new, fresh, spongy brain storage unit of a child. Finding out that, you know, a child is directly and freshly come from Elohim. They have just come from the presence of Elohim, and he has so many ideas and so much purpose, fresh, innocent in their mind, that until they get into the earth and run into having to be callous and cold and mean and ornery because of what they encounter out here, if we could learn to mine, M-I-N-E, the M-I-N-D of a child, nurture their ideas. Well, that's ridiculous. We're trying to move worlds and get nuclear weapons. You talking about pay attention to a child. Absolutely. Yahweh just sent them in. He knows exactly what the world needs. And each new child coming in has a new ideal that will take their lifestyle into provisions for them when they get past our life. This is not a game. We just think it's about us. Because all we see is what we're doing and what we want and how we think it should be done. So when it comes to parenting, and many of you that are my age, we've sort of kind of missed our window. But if we don't M-I-N-E the M-I-N-D of our children, which means we have to pay attention to them, which means we will be actually following Proverbs 22:6. We will be training up a child by watching where the child goes in its downtime. You know, the time after you've made them do the chores, which are necessary and should be honored and done. You got to wash the dishes. You got to take the trash out. You ask for a dog. You got to feed the dog. You got to cut the dog's nails. You got to brush the dog's teeth. You got to do all of that. You ask for all that. Yeah, you got to do that. However, pay attention when they become beyond the motor skills and they're thinking in a way that is productive and creative. And if you follow anything, most of our children are the reason our fashions are the way that we are. The fashion industry, the music industry, the most lucrative businesses that there are, but yet in the industrial minds, in the industrial era mindset, we will say, you can't make no money thinking in the stars like that. And then we won't get behind them. And we'll stifle their imagination to work in a factory. Because that's how I can guarantee money gonna come into your life. You can't be out here, but every successful person that you and I have ever worked for and people work for today will tell you my imagination wasn't stifled. And when it was, I got away from them that stifled it. And this is what came out of it. So if your child has this energy, which is fresh from heaven, fresh from Elohim, you have the ability to put, you know how you go bowling and you got a bowling ball. And when the child goes bowling, you got to put up those guardrails. That's what parenting is. The guardrails to the energy that is that child. Don't stifle it. Don't suppress it. Watch it. Help it flourish. Parenting is like being a good gardener. You put a seed in the ground. If it's supposed to be a tree or a vine, you need to what we call put a stick next to it and wrap it to the stick so it can grow up. And then when it finally lays down, it's strong. Or you call a tree. In order for the tree to grow up strong, you got to tie it to something so that the nutrients from the vine can make it go up. And as it gets thicker, because it's upright rather than whipped and laid down, it will grow strong straight. That's parenting. So now in my latter years, though I understood it a little bit, I understand it a whole lot better now. So I understood it a little bit coming up because I felt insufficient in my upbringing. I don't know why I did, because I had food, I had family, I had a dad, I had a sisters, I had brothers, I had a mom. I just don't know why internally I felt like, but as I grew up, I said, I'm not going to let my children feel what I felt, at least to the best of my abilities. And that's what I went after. And in that process, in that journey, I began to unearth certain things. And at the same time, I'm dealing with faith, I'm dealing with purpose, I'm dealing with why do I exist? And all of it sort of came together. And that's how we realized that being a parent is being a coach. So if you've ever been on a team and you've come from a family, the family member goes to the team, but the coach guides that family member into the construct of the team based on that family member's abilities and the scheme of the coach. So we don't look at family that way, though we reference the team to family, but we never reference the family to team. Make that a quote. I'll come back and make it a reel another day. We reference the team to family, but we never reference the family to team. We say we raise in our family potential team mates for another place. And in fact, we should be raising in our family a team. Y'all think I'm just talking? Okay. So at that, I'm going to stop talking. And I hope that this wasn't a waste of your time in your afternoon. And I hope that you could glean something that'll make you say, okay, now I know how to train up a child in the way they should go. Now, I'm going to come back on Friday. No, I'm not. I'm going to do it right now. Yeah, because I don't have time. So I'll come back on Friday. I'll push what I was going to teach on Friday back to Monday. And I'm going to do this part 3. Why? You wasted my time today. No, because some of you don't know how to deal with your children once they become an adult. Again, because of misconceived ideologies around family. And we think we own the child because we had the child, we fed the child. Well, how do you feel when your mom thinks she owns you or your dad think they own you? Like, I'm grown. You don't know how to try. You don't like it for you, but you sure enough gonna tell it to yours. Would y'all like me to take part 3 and help y'all with it? Because I have not really touched like I want to touch the phase leap into training up into knowing how to now deal with your grown raised child. You educated, you took to college, you got them their first job, you got them their first car, you got them their clothing, and now that they're out of your house, you or in college out of your house, getting other perspectives that go maybe contrary to your house. And you don't know how to deal with your child when they tell you, Mom, Dad, I don't think I want to do that. Well, I said you should. That doesn't seem, and you don't know how to deal with that. You just disrespectful. You no honor, and you want to pray to God about them. You can't pray to God about them. God gave them to you. He already know about them. You need to pray to God about you and how you can't see what they're trying to accomplish because they have a different purpose than you. Parent, coach, guardrail. Now you're trying to manipulate for your benefit. Y'all care if we talk about that next week, next Friday, on Friday? Because I really want to.
Yes.
I don't have enough time here to touch it, but I want to make sure we understand the right, the author Grice. The author Grice said this is a new way of thinking. Exactly, Brother Grice. And I know you know that because I know you're a great father. And when you and your wife, yeah, you and Michelle Grice, you guys want educators and then practical livers, you know, of okay, we got to get this done, and we strategize, and we think about how to get it done and who is best in our family to get it done. Y'all know many of y'all will send children off to school and never hire them to do what they went to school to learn and think that they're supposed to do it for you for free. But their classmate opens up an office down the street and you'll pay them at 300% the value of that service. And your child got a better GPA in that same class, but you want your child to do it to you for free. But to do that job for you for free still costs because time is involved. So none of my children can work for free for me. If my son or my daughter does something in an industry that I would end up needing from that industry, I make a contract with my son or my daughter. I'd rather pay them than pay that man. It doesn't mean they owe me because I raised them. It means I have now a confidant and a trust in that industry, i.e. my child, who I gotta pay for the services. If they wasn't doing it anyway, why not pay them, which helps them get marketing, which helps them get analytics, which helps them get food on their table. And I'm not just giving them money, I'm actually helping them in the whole process of their business. I'm a client, not just their parent. And that adds to their client list. That adds to their ability to get funding from a bank. That adds to their ability to get signage and internet presence and references. And if they decide to give me back a discount, that's their choice. But I want you to charge me the full going market rate. And I'm going to pay you. Might be on the old school layaway plan, but I'm going to get it to you, cuz. No, I'm just joking. Y'all don't know about layaway. Okay. So, and that's how you keep your child working. And you don't realize it. And then you get mad when they come to you and say, well, man, my business is collapsing. Can I get an investment from you? Now, you've used them 18 times since they started their business and they did it for free. And now the business is failing. And you're like, well, I ain't got no money to give you. I can't be lenient. And every time I give you money, it goes nowhere. So just to switch that mindset so you can do that transfer without the aggravation, contract your child if they're in that industry. Pay them for what they went to school to do. What made you think you were exempt? Let them determine whether they want to honor you that way. Because you got to pay for that service no matter what. At least it's with someone who knows you and knows the kind of work you expect. And you have a contract. And you have access to them. How many of y'all got contractors in any particular genre? And once they got your money or deposit, you can't reach them. But you can reach your child, usually, better than you will somebody who ain't your child. So I remember when my brother Earl was alive. Call him Pete. And Pete he was a bootleg barber. All my family's bootleg barbers. I gave up. I've given them up, but I know how to cut a head. I'll mess a head up too now. But he was a really good bootleg barber. Just wouldn't go down and get licensed. My sister Earlene, girl, had the best French roll back in the 80s, 90s. If you wanted a French roll, that's where you went to get one. It just looked natural. She just was good. Finger waves. Oh my gosh. So she was she's still very good at what she does with hair. And but my brother, when I would bring my sons over when they were younger, and I would come over like, yo, man, cut me up, he would like, all right, cool. We go down to the basement or wherever the room was. He cut us up. People out there waiting, talking about, yo, I'm gonna come by, whatever. He's like, all right, well, I'm when I get done these heads, I'll call you over. And he was like, all right, Ham, I'll talk to you later. He called me Ham. He's like, all right, Ham, talk to you later. I'm like, yo, well, how much? Get out of here, man. I'm like, what you mean? You just had to take 4 calls and said, when I'm done this head, you come over. It took time to cut my and my son's hairs, and you lost money if you don't take this payment. I got to get a haircut no matter what. I just came to you because I know you're good and you know what I like. I ain't got to explain what my look. You've known me all your life. You know what image I want. That's worth me paying for. And he was like, yeah, man, get out of here. You my brother, man. I'm like, I know, but who better to support you? And when it hit him, he was like, you know what, bro? You're right. I said, now listen, since you're not going to give me a price, I'm going to pay you what I was willing to pay, Roy's Barbershop to cut me and my son's head. Now, if you want to give me some of that back after I give it to you, that's your call. But here's the money. You want to bless me? Cool. But it's not going to be by you wasting time that I know you just pushed 4 phone calls back to make sure we got our hair cut, and they could have got that money because they could go somewhere else if they can't wait. So here's the money. I know the going rate for the haircuts are. And you want to give me back $15 of that? Cool. You know what I mean? But here's the money. And I'm good with it. Yeah, but we family. We're supposed to do that. I said, we got to end that concept. That's why family businesses go broke, because family don't support them. And that's how we have to understand training up our children in the way that they should go. Find what they gravitate to. Make them a professional in it, and then help them with it. So I want to talk more about that, and I hope that helped y'all. Was this a waste of y'all time? I see our viewership dropped. Clearly I'm talking too much and maybe too long. So
No.
is there any questions or thoughts? I did promise to give a minute for some questions or thoughts.
Dr. V.
All right, moderators, is Dr. V. Is Dr. V first?
Yes, sir.
All right, Dr. V.
I want to go back a little bit. You were speaking about the Rothschilds and Rockefellers. And I just wanted to say the other dimension to that is they were teaching how to keep the inheritance, keep the flow going in their families, because they would take out policies and put different ones as a beneficiary. So when that one passed, then it kept flowing and kept flowing. And so,
what that is a trust, which is
right.
now taking storm. So, everybody's talking about, oh, you got to get trust funds. Oh, you got to get trust funds. And we used to laugh at people called trust fund babies, but you understand, I want to be a trust fund baby. I want all my babies to be a trust fund baby. And all of you now coming into the knowledge. And I had to repent, because I had a couple of peers of mine, Jewish friends and Italian friends, who had these things going on. But because of the narrative within my community, oh, that's a trust fund baby. They was born with a silver spoon in their mouth. They feel entitled. And I thought that I should look down at them for that because we are here hustling. Every day I'm hustling. Every day I got to fight. You know, and at the end of the day, I'm like, if I understood what a trust fund baby was and not term insurance, but whole life insurance,
There you go.
I wouldn't be in this position today, and neither would you. Some of you have lost homes in probate because you didn't have a trust set up for your family estate. So that's a whole nother teaching. If I open it up right now, I won't stop. But that's a whole nother teaching. And I can't teach that to Christendom because Christendom just thinks God gonna provide everything. Well, how about, you know, God provides a trust.
Come on.
And we refuse to learn about it. And unfortunately, there have been people that have been crooked in the industry and used y'all and everything like that. So you don't know where to put anything, who to trust. But, you know, when I see people after, I do so many funerals, and my benefit that most don't have is I'm in the morgue and I'm at funerals more than most. And I see the financial weight when a patriarch or matriarch dies. And now we used to call it passing the hat just to bury the body. Now you call it a GoFundMe page. And none of this is what that's supposed to be about. And if you have the proper kind of insurance, as opposed to this term life insurance, all of us in my neighborhood were sold. No one was told about whole life. At least we were told we couldn't afford it. And whole life, another conversation. I can't get into that right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I understand.
the Rockefellers, the Clintons, and I say these names not just because these people are celebrities to you, but the Kennedys. If anybody dies, the way that their families and our trusts are set up is that if somebody dies, the actual benefits of their death go to the family trust. Their house that they lived in was bought in the family trust. Their business was put behind shell companies, all of them in a family trust, so that if they died or got sued, they don't lose this in probate or legal litigation because somebody's suing them. Insurance kicks in for them to cover the trust. And we were just not taught that. And that is where I'm at my chagrin. You know, it gets me. So I'll be talking about that at another time, but it is necessary for you to understand trusts, whole life insurance, so that when you die, you know, the house doesn't get put up in probate because no one made a will. And you thought you were going to live forever and keep making money forever until you had a stroke. And now you can't work until you got in an accident. And now you can't move. And you're hoping that an insurance policy or a lawsuit for, personal injury comes in and takes over. And all of these things, we didn't do a good job parenting in certain communities. And we were kept from that information. Just like redlining on homes, we were kept from that information. And so when I die, I don't want anything that I have to go through probate. Now, there are some lawyers who are like, well, it's not quite that simple. Yeah, but in a more general text, a more general context for us who are in this world, we need to start talking about that more within Christendom and stop thinking Jesus paid it all.
Awesome. I'm laughing because you're right. I know my mother, she told me to tell all of her children they could take out a policy on her. She would sign it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, she closes her eyes and I tell her this, we didn't know anything about it. Come on, people.
Yeah. So one of the problems is, when you don't when you don't listen, if your mother, your father is alive, go to them and get an insurance, even if it's term, get an insurance policy. Now, the problem is too many of y'all heard that, oh, they got an insurance policy, they're going to try to kill me. Why can't you see it that you're making sure that they don't die once you're dead, because you've been such a pillar in their world that if you're moved, that pillar slips, the whole foundation crumbles. So every person, I want all my children to have insurance policies on me.
That's right.
The ministry, this ministry has an insurance policy on me, so that if I die, this ministry's next pastor has a salary to make their transition into taking care of this easier. Because if you didn't grow up in ministry like I did, whereas you had to scuffle and pay everything out of your pocket until they could get to the place where there was an understanding of what's supposed to be done, the ministry has a policy on my life that if I'm gone, the ministry board now has money to go out and hire. Or if we haven't already put it, my job is to make sure that I have a successor in mind, and it won't be my blood. It'll be someone under the blood, but it won't be someone in my blood that runs the ministry once I'm gone. So the ministry has an insurance policy. And many of y'all don't understand that many churches who have this mindset, they all have insurance policies that they take out for their church, that if I die, this church that's changed my life, that's educated me, that's kept me, actually can get $20, $100, $50,000 in my demise. I've also got that for my children, grandchildren, and nephews, or whatever. Everybody has a policy on me. I have no problem with that. So when I pass, y'all gonna love me. Oh, I miss Uncle Harold. I miss Uncle Virgil. I miss him. Oh, he blessed me before he left. And I put on the back of your car, in memory of. Don't do that. Don't do that. But that's how many of your churches got those Tiffany windows and those pews. Oh, the library was dedicated by brother so-and-so who's passed on, because in his will, he left for the church's advancement, for the community's advancement, for his school's advancement, because while he was alive, it affected his life, her life, and they left an endowment. And we don't get that. Well, I can't afford to do that. And that's why we can't afford to do a lot, because no one would do just a little. If everyone would do that, if I could talk to y'all like I really want to talk to y'all, it's another conversation. We can't get into it. But if I could talk to y'all about what I know about church and churches, the difference between Black churches, Jewish churches, Caucasian churches, Haitian churches, Jamaican churches, if I could talk to you about why some of them last 120 years and some of y'all can't never get out of the storefront once the pastor dies, it'll blow your mind. So it's about understanding that and knowing how to implement that. But when you start talking about that in certain places, people like, oh, you just no. You have to stay. So again, I thank God for my mother. She's like, hey, get the insurance policy. She know I ain't trying to kill her. I love that woman. Matter of fact, I'll hurt somebody else. But when Yahweh calls you, and if somebody try to kill you anyway, you can't leave here till Yahweh say so. So, it might mess with the quality of life. But hey, at the end of the day, it is a wise thing to do. Stop fearing preparing your family for your expiration. Go and get your children to get an insurance policy. It'll pay out more in your demise to them than any loans or borrowing of monies they could ever get from you. And they'll have a lump sum, not $25 here and $1,000 there and $300 over here. They'll get a lump sum. And if you do that, be wise enough also to get your wills done. So this way the government can't come in and take control of that stuff. And now you mad and upset and can't do nothing, have nothing, because they're gone and their property and everything else they had is gone. And you thought it would last forever. You must prepare yourself. And we don't do that. We've not been taught that. Jesus paid it all. Hallelujah. My God will provide. Sign the document. How about do that? Make the contract right in this earthen realm. All right, I got to get out of here. I'm sorry, Dr. V. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, quite.
Thank you so much for your added value. All right, moderators, who's next on cue? Coffee, shalom to you.
Shalom, Apostle. Shalom, everyone. I had a question. Maybe I know you might be pressed for time, but maybe Friday. How do you feel about, and maybe what does the Ritz say?
Okay, slow down, Coffee. Start over. You're all over the place. Give me to it one more time. Try it again.
Okay, I'll try. All right. What does the Ritz say, and how do you feel about the children when they assist the parents
in living?
Because, in living.
Yeah, that's
what extent? Oh, go ahead.
No, please finish your thought. I cut you off.
With expenses and different things. Just wanted to know what was your thoughts on that?
Okay, here's my thought on that in general, and that is a part of this particular section. We can touch it again on Friday, but here's what everybody doesn't understand. A child will only take care of its parent. We've made it so that our parents are to be, in theory, taken care of by our children. And I'm your mom, I'm your dad, you're supposed to take care of me. I raised you, I pampered you, I put Pampers on you, I did this, I did that, you owe me. That child don't owe you one thing but thank you. How you took care of that child will determine how they take care of you when you were in your vulnerable years. You ain't sow love if you didn't sow unconditional love. Well, I loved them, they got through, but it wasn't unconditional. Y'all can miss me with all that. So how you loved your child will literally render fruit that you can eat from later when you become as vulnerable to life as they were when they came into life. Now you're leaving life. There's a reason we say you are young twice. You're a child twice. You're a child when you're a child, you grow up, become an adult, and as you leave adulthood, you start to decline into childlike ways again. So when you are you're in a vulnerable place twice, when you're a child and when you're in your geriatrics. Pediatrics and geriatrics are your most vulnerable place. When you're grown, you're on your own. So when you're in pediatrics, you need mom and dad to take care of you, and they should do that. And the fruit of that for you is bringing you into being grown. And if they did that right with care, even if they wasn't as informed, they did it unconditionally, no questions, whatever. That fruit for you and your pediatrics will bear fruit for them when they become geriatrics. So what they're sowing to you in pediatrics, they should be able to get in geriatrics. Y'all didn't expect that, did y'all? You okay though? So don't automatically think that they need to take care of me because I'm their mom, I'm their dad. Oh, no. No, there's too much litigation, particularly in America, that litigates this, that, and the other. You can divorce your parents, all that stuff like that. There's no obligation. So what you sow, I love my mother. She loved me. If anything happens to her, whatever I got, I'm treating her like I treated my children when they were born. So how do you feel about a child helping their parent? Some parents got rude awakenings because their child told them what they really went through when they was with them. And it shows in their actions towards us once we get older. And because that's going to be the last question, y'all. And because of everything that we do and what we hear in our culture, we just think, no, you're supposed to take care of your mom and your dad when they get older. That should be the goal. It shouldn't even be a goal. It should be an organic thing. And that will be determined on how the child was actually taken care of when they were vulnerable. You don't believe me? I can take you to the Bible where Yeshua told Peter, today you get dressed and you put on your clothes, you stand up and you go wherever you want. But a day is going to come when they're going to dress you and they're going to take you wherever they go. You won't be in control. I'll talk about that another day. Did y'all know that was in the Bible? Yep. So when our children are helping our parents, that will be the fruit of that parent's labor. It won't be forced. It will be organic. And do y'all know that certain cultures have grandmom, mom and dad, and the children and the grandchildren technically living in and on the same compound? When we get grown, we move out, go get our own. And then when our mom and dad, we wait for them to sell their house so we can get the benefits from it, if it's even into that. And then we send them to an assisted living space, and then get mad when we go see them at assisted living that they got bed sores and they've been treated wrong, they've been smacked, they've been punched, because we were not told a better way of community. So we paid somebody to do for our parents in a space that they could have freedom. But if we would take that same money, put it into a mother-in-law suite at our property where we can check in on them and they can still have the same liberty now that they've downsized in their life because they have no big dreams to go after other than being there, you now have a grandparent or a parent, a grandparent to your children, not a babysitter, but a grandparent to your children who can make up in your child what they messed up in your life because they just didn't know, but they're also right there near you. You know what they're eating. You know how to care for them. You're not going to let them sit there and be a hoarder. You're going to be able to care for them. And when they start getting, memory short and stuff like that, you're there to pay attention to it instead of leaving them to an assisted life, talking about, oh, they're over there with other old people and they're over there with activities and stuff. You now have a better understanding of what your mom, your dad, or grandparent is going through. But what we've learned to do is get yours, you're for and no more. And mom, okay, mom, we're going to put you in the old folks home, put you in a nursing home, put you in an assisted living place. It ain't the same. And then we're paying for that service, and then they're not being treated based on what we're paying. And if you would take the same money and invest it into your own home, make the accommodations there, bring in a nurse a couple hours a day, but they're still under your watch on your compound. And you know they're not being mistreated. They're with family. And if they want to stay in their space and say, I don't want to be bothered, don't bring the children over, they can do that. They still can bring in company. They can have their friends come over. It's a mother-in-law suite. It's a parent suite. They don't need as much. They just, and the thing about it too is when you are with your when you're older, let me help y'all with this. When you are an older individual and you've had children and you're finally over raising children, the greatest energy a geriatrics person can have is the fresh energy from heaven in a grandchild sitting in that grandparent's lap, the grandparent walking that child in the park, playing around the house. It gives that grandparent energy that is organic. It is unparalleled to giving that grandparent purpose, hope, and life. Because most grandparents get rid of their family, or family get rid of them, and then they go and hang out with a whole bunch of old other people whose families have left them to the assisted living, and they all have the same energy, and everybody's tired. Nobody has a reason to do anything. And let's go crochet, let's go play dominoes, let's go to this preacher coming into our unit, let's go do communion, and then the nurses and whatever. All of that is a different energy. When you got that grandparent interacting with its grandchildren, you give life to your whole family. Cuffy, I'm going to answer your question better on Friday.
Thank you, Apostle. That was helpful.
Was it really? You're just being nice because you know it's my program and I'll tell you something. I'm just joking. Do y'all understand that?
Yes, sir. You become your
Yes,
environment.
Because your grandchildren, you now have a chance to aid them and aid your child being a parent. And you also get energy from your family. You're being fed and taken care of by your family. And it's different. And there are people who just ignorant, nasty family members. Of course, we ain't talking about you going staying there, but I'm talking about any place that you've literally given your life and your heart to. It will be a completely different experience than this assisted living. I'm not trying to mess up nobody's care business. But what I know from so many funerals and all the stories that go with those funerals, some of us don't have good stories about these assisted living places. We don't. And people have caught cases behind them. And then you have other people who like, well, I left with my sister and my sister don't take care of them neither. And then now the government's involved. So my point is, there is a plan. Do we do it? Are we really a part of it? That's another story. But that's how it should organically flow. Grandparents should not be separated from the family and visited because the children, once mom and dad have been put away, feel like, oh, they good, they secure, I can go live my life. You don't ever get around to visiting. And when staff sees that, everybody ain't, people only do what you expect. People never do what you expect. They only do what you inspect. And if there is no inspection of what you expect, then anything can be done. And by the time you inspect it, it's too late. Now you mad. And that goes for any place. And y'all might look at that differently. I said what I said. And if you want more on it, I'll share it with you. But I'll be back on Friday to talk about it. All right, last person. Daphne, I think you were on. Was Daphne last? Daphne was the last person, right? Daphne?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say thank you for that statement that you made. It brought a lot of relief to me. Thank you, Apostle.
Yahweh be praised. I'm glad it did. Danielle Dugas Hawkins made a statement. Question. She says, I thought it was in the Torah that we have to take care of the widowers, the children, and orphans. Daphne, Danielle, I did the same thing. And when I said this, until I read it, it is our responsibility to take care of the widows. That's the community's job to take care of the widows, male or female. The children, because the children literally are the future of that community. So everybody should be invested in every child in that community. But if that community is so diverse in faith, in I dare say ethnicity, but is so diverse in doctrine, it's a difficult task because the family of one doctrine raises their children different than the family of another doctrine or culture. Though we should all care for our children because the children are our futures. Now, when you have a community that's built on purpose by families of like mind, having compounds, making their own region, making their own sustainability, then those children, again, it's a different concept. So we should be caring for our children because our children are our futures. And to care for our children right, we have to have the same doctrine, concept, or culture being propagated in that neighborhood. We should be caring for our children, making sure that neighbor Tommy and Auntie Sally across the way, everybody sees that child out there urinating on the tree, runs out there and gives him the business about that, and everybody's on the same page. Taking care of our children. No child should go unhungry. If a child is an orphan, i.e. orphan, then yes, we need to make sure that those children are taken care of and loved within a family. But that part about widows, there's no grandparenting in there. We just assume a widower is a grandparent because somebody was alive and then somebody died and now somebody's left alive. But a widower could be someone who husband went to war. And in the time of that writing in the Torah, when a person went to war, they might not come back. And that's a widower at 25. So Danielle, that changes the dynamic and some of the nuancing of that statement, moderators. And so when you start looking into it, it again, as we say, it hits different. But yes, Torah does send that as a charge. We are to take care of the widow and the orphans. And if you read the book of Acts, when there was an issue with the Widows and Orphans Fund between the Grecian and the Hebrews, we also get into a way in which that was supposed to be done. And the community was responsible for making sure that the widowers, again, from widowers from war, widowers from life languishing, widowers from industrial accidents, male or female. And everybody thinks that it's just a widow being a woman because, but if a man and a woman come together in those days to build a life, then those two powerhouses were building together. And when you lose half of that, whether it's a man or a woman, that is a major blow to that family and that build that they were doing. And they need help. It's hard to readjust. And you just think that the widows was women, and they're not. And that's not what you were thinking, Danielle. I'm just putting it out there because a widower is a widower. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yes, it does.
Yes, that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Danielle, does that help? I see. Okay, I see you, Danielle. But yes, the Torah does say that. It does give us that charge to look after them. Sonia Mayfield, last question. Can you speak on the young grandparents of today, those 40 and up, that are still living life on Friday? The society and culture we live in produced what we're seeing. And if you caught the first part of this program, we talked about how the families should be based on the kingdom of Elohim, as opposed to and in contrast to what our families are today. We didn't raise families the way Yahweh intended, especially not anybody post-industrial stage, industrial era. We just didn't. And so a grandparent at 40 wasn't an uncommon thing, actually, even in the days of of Yeshua. We just don't realize it because we feel entitled, because we have laws today that weren't in place back then. And we have an idea today that wasn't the idea back then. So a 40-year-old grandparent wasn't uncommon in the day of Yeshua. It really wasn't, because they had children sooner back then than we really care to admit or think. So here's a point to that. If a 40-year-old grandparent is still in the club on Friday night, if the child of, if the parent of their grandchild is grown, it shouldn't be an issue, because they raised the child that gave them the grandparent. Now, if that child that gave them the grandchild is still a child themselves, then grandma and or granddad don't understand what they're doing to their family. Can they go out and have fun? Of course, they better. But when you have a child, your life, your aspirations, your I'ma do me, it's got to wait until you get them to becoming responsible citizens in society. Now, if your child is not grown and has happened to have a child that makes you a grandparent, it's not the issue of grandmom in the club. It's the issue of mom in the club or dad in the club and haven't raised their children to be responsible citizens of society yet. Can they go to the club? And yeah, they can. But when you're the way we're talking, this is just their lifestyle. They still living life through Fridays. That means that's a lifestyle. And that means them children are unguarded by the element Yahweh sent them to be raised by. And that leaves them vulnerable. So, Sonia, am I making sense to you without being confusing? So, going back to the source and the root of the problem, if the grandparent's a grandparent because their child had a child while being a child, then the grandparent needs to make sure that they've raised their child. The parent needs to make sure, the grandparent needs to make sure that they raise their child that made them a grandparent and raise them to be a child in society. They need to be focused on their child. Whenever you and I have a child, whenever you and I have children, we need to stop what we're doing to focus on raising that child. That is a charge from Elohim for that human. And if every human would take the charge of being a parent, we would have a much better world. So the parent who has a child is been given a charge by the creator of all life to raise that child to becoming a productive citizen in society. And that's the job, no matter what schooling you were in, no matter what degree you were chasing, no matter what business you were trying to build, that is the job. Once you have a baby come from your loins or your womb, your focus is to provide for that child. Your focus is to raise that child. And that means that though you have to make sure you secure money for a roof overhead and food on table and clothes on back, you must make sure that you are watching and honoring that child. But if you're so busy trying to, I'm too old, I'm getting old, I got to get my fun in while I can, and you're worried about that, you're worried about the wrong things. And that's going to show when that grandparent gets older, because you as a grandparent left that child every Friday night. Now, when you get in your geriatric states, grandparent, grandparent and or mom or dad, parent, they're going to do you that same way because they're going to demonstrate what you manifested. Sonia, does that help? Or did I take it into a place you prefer it not go? I'm just joking, Sonia. Does that help? Let me know. Good question. I got to be done, guys. Is Sonia still here? Please let me know Sonia's still here. I hope I answered her question in a timely fashion. Does it help though, Sonia? She says, yes, it makes sense. Does it help though? Is that on the same vein you're thinking? Wanda Floyd, only because you're a moderator, I'm going to answer this question at this point. Wanda asks a very good question. Would caring for your parents fall under the commandment of honoring your mother and father? You can say it on Friday. First off, Miss Wanda, who do a little hair, you ain't the boss of me. You can't tell me when I can answer this. You can do it on Friday. You are not the boss of me. You help me moderate a platform. Don't get that part. All right, let me stop. So anyway, that was funny, but I guess y'all tired of listening. So would caring for parents fall under the commandment of honoring your mother and father? When I say this, y'all gonna be like, what? No. Does honoring your parents fall under the commandment of honoring your mother and father, your father and mother? No. You honor your father and your mother while they're raising you. You honor them by honoring them. Providing for them is something completely different. But the way, and if you should provide for them, will because of how they cared for you and your honor for what they sowed into your life. So it doesn't fall under the commandment, though it would be a beautiful fuel for why you care for them. If you honor your parents will honor you. If your parents honor you, all that is good. But honoring your parent does not, caring for your parent does not fall under the honor your father and mother, because your mother and your father are their own humans, just like we're telling you that your children as a parent are their own human. But everybody is supposed to be pointed towards Elohim. He provides for you. When you came through your time of when you've come through your time of pediatrics, your parents were supposed to provide for you. Your parents providing for you are also providing for themselves. Now they've taught you how to do it. You go start your family. You provide for your children and yourself. My children are not to come back and take care of me. And if they come back to take care of me, it's because they see dad is at a state, and the way dad took care of us, I know he's well taken care of. He's put himself in a position, but I love my dad. That's the only reason I want my children to come back here to do anything for me. I want them to go and live their life. When you understand community a little bit differently, when you understand family Elohim style, when you understand commonwealth, it all hits different. Now, if I see my mom in trouble, am I going to jump out my skin to help her? You better believe it. But everybody don't have that testimony, because everybody wasn't treated by their parents as well as the parents like to think they treated their children. And your children will let you know when they get older. exactly how they felt. Okay, hope that answered your question, Miss Wanda, who do a little bit of hair, who is not the boss of me. All right. Okay, everybody. So we'll be back to talk about the transition and the phase, the phase and the leap of the phase into what things are. I want to make sure that parents understand how to be with their children who are now grown. Because all your life for 20, 25, 26 years, you've been hand to mouth with that child to some degree, right? And now that child is telling you, okay, you've been giving me this, but I like it. I ate it because you said it. I honored you, but I don't really like that. But I did it because that's what we had. Now I can get my own. I have my own preferences. I have my own fashion. I got my own style. I got my own taste buds. I want to do this. Well, you should do this. I raised you on that. I raised you. But here's what I like. And I can afford to do what I like now. And you just forgetting where you come from. I don't know who you think you is. You the one that then got all bougie or all of this. No, it's just my tastes. And I did what you provided me, and that was good. I respect it. I honor it. It's always a part of my library, but I prefer something else. Love you, but I prefer something else. And many parents don't know how to make that transition. So we're going to talk about that on Friday. Again, I know what I'm sharing with you is uncomfortable and sometimes a very uncommon thing, but I assure you, as a counselor for many families, it's important to grasp. All right, time is up. I went way too long. This was 2 hours. It's supposed to be 1 hour long. But I hope that the questions helped you guys. If you guys, please, on the YouTube, Facebook, if this was helpful, because other people might hear us rambling and think, oh, I'll cut this off. If y'all let them know, hey, I learned something here today. You know what? I didn't think about this. I was this day old, or, that hits different. If y'all can just make a comment in the chat, if and only if you felt it that way. Don't do it because I asked. But if you felt it that way, I'm going to ask you to make one small extra effort and let it be known. All right. On the threads. It will do me a grand favor. I appreciate you guys so very much. My job here is done. I'm hoping that you guys will glean some things. Remembering we're going to be here tonight. Tonight is Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are here for our Bible study, and that topic matter for the Bible study tonight will be, in fact, dealing with the appointed and scheduled reset of all life. It is a necessary time of study. We'll be talking about some eschatology. You'll be blessed by it. But right now, the program you're in is the proceeding word. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahweh, who is our Elohim. And I'm hoping and praying that you'll come back on Friday. We want to talk about some other things about how parental guidance looks as a style of Elohim's kingdom. So it's been a joy and a pleasure. For those of you who have been with us, remember every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I look to hear from you and see you again in the very near future. My name is Apostle V.W. Jones. It's been a joy and an honor to be with you in this process, and we'll see you again very soon.
If you need truth, this is the place for you. Don't need to complicate it. It's best to keep it basic. Open the book, the word itself approved. He's Alpha and Omega, the answer since the early ages. What you should do is learn about the greatest. Just so you know, our door is always open. Let's study together instead of debating. Share our differences. Let love heal all that's broken.